Well, welcome. My name is Brian Owenga, and I'm a faculty member at UW Stout. With me, I have two wonderful gentlemen, Dr. Mark Fenton and Professor Scott Weaver, who are going to tell us about some wonderful program called the YALI program. Could you please tell us what the YALI program is all about?
I'm happy to say, Brian. Brian, it's actually the Mandela Washington Fellowship of Young African Leadership Initiative.
Right.
And it was started about a little over a year ago through the White House. President Obama wanted to take a lead in helping the youth of Africa. When I say the youth, I'm talking about an age range 25 to 35 years old. Africa is the only continent in the country that has a decreasing age population. The rest of us are getting older, they're getting younger. And what that means is you have high unemployment, you have people who are trying to get out from poverty, trying to develop their countries, and it's not always working. Right. So the initiative is designed to bring groups of 500 young African potential leaders to the United States for the next 5 years, to 20 different universities each year, and on 3 different tracks. One is business and entrepreneurship, that's what we had at Stout. Right. The others were related to civic engagement and public management. At the end of the Institute, and we'll tell you more about that, we all went to Washington, D.C. For a summit with the President. The fellows were able to see him, many were able to meet the President, the First Lady, Secretary of State, and many others. And during our experience at Stout, the fellows in the business and entrepreneurship track, we went to a lot of site visits, we had leadership training. We really did everything that would be accompanied in the startup of a business process or to grow a business.
That's wonderful, Mark. Yeah. And they were here on our campus over summertime.
Yep, they're here for 6 weeks, right. And they're from primarily sub-Saharan African countries. Right. Our fellows, Scott, if you can remember, from Kenya, Nigeria, Liberia, Malawi,
Ghana, Zambia, Uganda, Tanzania,
okay.
South Sudan.
South Sudan, yeah. South Africa. There were 14 countries in all represented at the University of Wisconsin Stout.
Right. Yeah. And you had experience with them, as a faculty assistant there. What was your experience, Scott?
Oh, it was a great experience. Most of my time was spent on site visits with them, giving them an opportunity to explore the way American businesses are run, getting an opportunity to talk to the owners or senior managers of those businesses, and an opportunity for them to ask questions. How could I apply this when I go back home? Right. How could I make my business stronger or start my business?
Okay.
So I think it offered all 25 some unique opportunities there to get advice from others.
Well, so basically it's a kind of trying to create some support system for businesses in Africa.
Yes.
Do you see that helping Africa, or how does that help, going forward,
Yeah, it's already started going forward.
Right.
A lot of the Washington Fellows either had their own business concern or had a plan in place that they wanted to put in place upon returning after what they've learned, and they've been starting to accomplish that. 6 of the fellows earned $25,000 scholarships or grants rather, and those grants are being put in place to grow their business ideas. Right. And they are actually even following each other and meeting each other in the various countries in Africa, sharing what they've learned with other Africans, other young Africans who didn't come on the program, but also but who might be coming next year as well. Okay. So it provides a nice opportunity for continued growth of the program.
And you said this is a 5-year
It's essentially it's funded for 5 years.
Right.
Last year was 500. This year it's going to be 500 again, and then the following 3 years they're going to bring 1,000.
Oh.
And other countries are doing similar activities. India is doing something similar, as well as China as well.
Okay. And how will you then share your, the YALI program relative to the American policy, especially the one that, concerns Africa?
Well, I can't speak for the president, but based on what, maybe Scott, you can help me out,
sure.
is the goal is to help Africa grow.
Okay.
And to realize that there is incredible potential.
Right.
and to have these young people who are some of the brightest of the bright I have ever met my whole life,
right.
Bring to fruition their ideas, their goals.
Yep.
Right.
Look, I mean, the questions they asked were great. I mean, each employer we went to, each business had the same comments about the wonderful questions they had, the in-depth questions.
Right.
Something I guess I could borrow, you know, when Mark mentioned we went to Washington, D.C., and he talked about some of the people we saw. And one of the, not that I wasn't impressed with all the speakers, but one of them that I thought was very interesting was actually Steve Case, the founder of AOL.
Right.
And he talked about you know, the declining age in the population there,
right.
but he talked about how Africa is really on the leading edge of a growing economy now, where things have the opportunity to change around, or turn around, and it's an opportunity for investors around the world to you know, strengthen that continent and the respective countries. And I think this YALI opportunity really, you know, reinforces what Steve brought up.
Right.
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah, and actually talking about your visiting, Washington, D.C., I remember you sharing some picture you took of the president.
Yes.
Yeah.
I took a lot of pictures while we were there, that's for sure.
All right.
And I've noticed the one, Mark and I were kind of laughing earlier, that the one seems to have popped up on a lot of publications around the internet now. So that was an exciting opportunity, and one of the, you know, I want to share those pictures not only for Stout, but also all of our fellows as well. In fact, many fellows from other schools even got some of those photos to share too. So it's an opportunity for them to kind of go back home and say, this is what I saw, this is what I was a part of.
It's something else they were also take a part of, is they're able to meet the leadership from their own countries.
Right.
Either before or after, and some of them still have continued relationships with their national leaders or leaders in regions of the countries where they're from. One of the recurring themes from the Washington Fellows was the desire to try and root out a certain level of corruption that's in many of their countries. And I think long term that will happen, providing that these Washington Fellows are able to bring their plans to fruition. And not just the group of 20 that we had or the 500 that were here last summer, but the next 500 and the 500 after that and the 1,000 after that and so on. One of their responsibilities when they return home to their home countries is to share that knowledge and to report on how they've shared that knowledge with the various U.S. embassies, and that information will make its way back to the State Department. Right. We have been fortunate enough to have been invited by the State Department and their contracting body to be offered to host again next year. Right. With the grant amount at $150,000 instead of $100,000. Right. So we're working on that right now. One of the long-term goals that we have at Stout and in the College of Management is to continue to work with the fellows and to help them to essentially help themselves in the long run.
Right. Yeah, thank you for sharing your experiences with the folks of the YALI program who came over. So do you think this kind of model is a good one for Africa? Will that be a game changer going forward in Africa using this kind of YALI program model?
Oh, I think absolutely the answer is yes. It gives them an opportunity, folks to come over to, as Mark just said, you know, listen to and hear from folks that have been successful in creating businesses and jobs and opportunities, and they can take the lessons they've learned home. And so yes, you talked to, you know, the first year 500 total or 25 at Stone, but as with anything, that word of mouth spreads quickly, and there's opportunities to educate. And those grants that Mark alluded to, where 6 of them were awarded to fellows at Stone, that provides much needed capital for them to grow those businesses and help in the teaching. And
the grants will come through again next year, and they're expected to be more and for more entities as well. And the fellows will be able to, again, share their knowledge, and they'll be able to grow. And one of the very interesting things for us is when we started the application process in summer of 2003, we got the final go-ahead actually in January of this year, 2014. You know, it doesn't just happen for 6 weeks. It happens for a year. And so it's a time-consuming but certainly worthwhile process. And we were in some very good company last year. Some of the other universities included Dartmouth, College of William and Mary, Clark Atlanta, Howard University, Berkeley,
Right.
and a number of others. So it was a nice company to be in.
Good. Yeah, the last question probably I have for you will be now, what would be your advice, maybe in about 30 seconds, what would you advise to the other policymakers in Africa or other team players in Africa, in support of this kind of YALI program? What would you say to them in case you met them or maybe through this kind of video link?
Listen to the fellows.
All right.
That's it. Listen to the fellows because they have a great message.
Right. Thank you.
Yep. And I would echo the same thing. Listen to the fellows, and I would say listen to all the fellows. Each person that was here is going to have, while they may have some common thoughts, they're going to have their own perspective on things and generating very good ideas.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Right.